in an article called The Kill Team. And these are photos that were basically had been censored by the Pentagon, and it shows some of the horrendous crimes that U.S. soldiers were committing against civilians in Afghanistan. I mean, these photos are absolutely atrocious. I mean, children that they literally murdered, cut off a 15-year-old boy's finger. They would kill them and then mutilate the corpse. And so far, none of them have been charged with it. All of this is taking place under Obama's watch. And I just want to pose a question to you all, and I'll listen off the air. What is it about white men, when they murder someone, they seem to enjoy taking a photograph with the corpse smiling? It's like what they did when they lynched black people. Right. What is the psychosis behind that? I'll listen off the air.
Thank you for your call. Reverend Oliver, do you want to comment on that question?
That seems to smack of serial killers, people who have no conscience, and who can, as in the South, people could sit down and have a dinner while a body is hanging up on a tree with no conscience whatsoever.
I'm sorry, when I look at it, I think of it as just their natural insanity. It's the same way they operate when they hunt animals, the lack of respect that they have for human life or African human life. When they hunt animals, you see them with their deer, they take pictures with their deer. When they catch large sharks, they take pictures with their sharks. And this is just their modus operandi, the way they operate. They have no respect for African life, and that's why they operate in the way that they do.
Well, I would just say real quickly that I think the brother's right. When you see pictures of, if you get the book, Without Sanctuary, I think it is, or 100 Years of Lynching, and you see the pictures how people pose around corpses, and you see just the way even white children will be around when a black man is hung, and how they take off the private parts of a black man and keep them in jars and preserve them. It just shows a certain level of sickness. And certainly I think that the other part of what he said is important. Bloomberg should not be handed softball questions anytime you ask him why a 7-year-old black child can be handcuffed in a school when the child was not committing a crime. Ask him how many white children are cuffed, and ask him why the Central Park, in the Central Park case, the victims are not receiving recompense. Just ask the question. You don't have to beat an answer out of him. Just have the heart and nerve to ask the question. That's what journalists do, and that's why KISS FM, that team, they're deplorable, because anytime he's on, they never ask him the tough questions, and that's why he'll come on shows like that. He would never come on a show like this.
And if you speak to Bloomberg, ask him why there's so few black commissioners under his administration, even less than Giuliani. Ask him how come blacks don't get contracts. There's less black contracts. There's less city contracts given to blacks under his administration, probably in the history of this city. This is the most segregated city in the country. If you look at the school system, if you look at his failures in education, if you look at the increase in homelessness under his administration, if you look at the increase in soup kitchens, if you look at the greater disparity under his administration between poor and rich, one of the few times in history where we have more millionaires being produced while at the same time more people in poverty, all under this, what's that brother call him, a deuce bag?
Yeah,
dirt bag.
Under this dirt bag, Mayor Bloomberg. And these questions are never raised to this billionaire who has no sympathy for African people. But real quickly, as it relates to your first point about the individual whites taking pictures with people that they murder and torture, every race has its criminals, its sick group. But if you look at those pictures that you talk about in Without Sanctuary, these are preachers, teachers, lawyers, judges. These are individuals who are supposed to be upward in society. These are people who are supposed to have some moral. These aren't supposed to be so-called criminals that go to these lynchings, these castrations of Africans, these tortures. They bring their kids. And then, as Michael said, they cut off body parts and they save them. And they take pictures of themselves with the bodies and send it to their mothers, to their grandmothers. So, Ma, this is the barbecue we had the other day. And like Julian said, this is a sick, diabolical nature. And the white supremacist has been, is, and will always be a devil. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Harlem, Hotel, brother.
Hotel, brother. Quick question or comment?
Yeah, I got a couple of comments. One, we should start this Friday bombarding Mike Bloomberg on WOR radio at 8 to 9, I believe it is. so where the white Americans can't get through with the little cornball questions they have for him, because I want you guys to know, half of the shows he goes on, they're pre-screened for the questions, so they're not going to allow them to ask the more politically charging questions. Second of all, a lot of them young men were convicted off of Donald Trump's money, if you guys recall, because his influence with taking out the ads in the paper had them boys convicted before anything else was said, because Donald Trump felt that a white woman should never have been disgraced in such a fashion. We should also protest WPIX, Channel 11 News, and Fox 5 for ever hiring that creep dirtbag former detective of the NYPD, Mike Sheehan, who was directly involved in this matter.
Yes,
we should also take issue with the likes of Reverend Al Sharpton and Stanford Rubenstein, because here he comes fleecing in our community all he can get out of us and promoting it on commercials, to where he's not even putting a dime back in the community to teach these young kids their basic everyday civil rights. Thank you, gentlemen. Take care.
Thank you for your call. Excellent points. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Harlem.
Okay.
Good evening, brothers.
Good evening.
Yes, I have just a comment. Let's start with Donald Trump. Now, is he Norwegian or German? That's a question that we have to ask him if he wants to run for president. Why was it necessary for his family to change German to Norwegian? In terms of human rights, we have a problem with human rights. We do not address human rights because those young men have a right to be men. They have a right to be human. And this is one of our biggest problems, is that we do not address those two words, human rights. As long as we don't, as a people, as long as we don't address that, we will never have our rights addressed it as human beings.
Okay.
God gave us this earth, and he said we have a right to be human beings.
Okay. I got it. Thank you, caller. Let me ask you, Reverend Oliver, because you make the distinction from a civil rights leader and a person who's for civil rights and a person who's promotes human rights. Why don't you explain the distinction as you see it?
Well, when I became involved in the civil rights struggle many years ago, I felt that the Constitution gave me certain rights. And I felt that we need to fight for those rights that are in the Constitution. However, about 10 years ago, I began to question that when I saw that we just weren't getting the rights that we were fighting for. They just were not here. So I began to read the Constitution, and I read that over and over and over again, and I read it at least 50 times to try to find out where was I in the Constitution, what rights do I have? And I found out that that's a slave document. It has nothing to do with human rights. It has nothing to do with civil rights for black people, because blacks had no rights at all. And the Dred Scott decision very clearly makes it very plain that blacks have no rights that a white man is bound to respect. And that has not been overruled by any ruling of the Supreme Court since that ruling was made in 1857. Therefore, it is still the law of the land. Books will tell you that the Civil War did away with that, but wars do not do away with a ruling of a Supreme Court. It's only a Supreme Court ruling that supersedes that takes its place. That has not yet been done. And so I think that we just don't have the rights. They're not there in the Constitution. So I'm for human rights. Right. I have rights that I was born with, and I'm recognized and I exercise, and but I don't have any rights in that Constitution because that's a slave document.
Right. Okay, excellent point. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Lower East Side.
Hotep, quick question or comment?
Comment.
We're listening.
Yes, hello. My comment is this. I was homeless for 17 years because I got ran over by a hit-and-run car. And I was living in the street and harassed for many years for living in the street because I refused to move into the homeless shelters, which were dirty, filthy, and dangerous. Whereas I see in our government today that the dogs have more right. If you lock a dog up in your backyard, you as a human being can get arrested, but the dog doesn't get arrested. You see, an animal that was meant to be
all right, we got. Do you have? We got your point, caller.
More rights.
All right, caller. We got.
American citizen.
Okay, we got it. Thank you for your call, caller. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
I'm calling from Harlem.
Hotep, quick question or comment?
comment. The things with